All right. Witness, illuminate, inspire action. That sounds right to me because that's the job description of every National Geographic storyteller. And I think we all do it in completely different ways, everyone who takes the stage today. I think that the witnessing is somewhat universal, but I think how we innovate in that next step, in the illumination, that's the part that really decides whether we inspire enough to create that action that we want in the world. You know, it's the heart that we put into it. It's that personal lens that we use. And sometimes it's the tools that we're able to share with you. So that's one thing I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to share a tool with you. I want to talk about virtual reality as a tool for conservation. This is a relatively new way of illuminating the stories of our world. And what we're doing with it here at Nat Geo has incredible potential for both conservation and education. But first, I want to take you to where we're going and tell you more about that place. This is a landscape that is covered with the evidence of 12,000 years of human habitation. What you're looking at right now is the procession panel. This is a petroglyph that was carved around 1,300 years ago by the ancestral Pueblo people and is located in what's now southern Utah. This is a place where you can still stumble upon in situ pots that remain unmoved and untouched for 800 years or more. This is an open air museum that still shows the fingerprints of the men and women who made the actual objects. This is a place where history is written on the walls as old as when mammoths still roamed North America, where you can still walk through thousands of surface sites on the mesa tops that were once homes or hunting camps. These incredibly fragile environments are under incredible threat right now like never before. Experts estimate that this landscape, recently named a national monument, has over 100,000 of these archaeological sites. The place is known as Bears Ears. Now, many of you may know of Bears Ears because of the incredibly preserved ancestral Pueblo structures, and many more may know of it because the protection given to landscapes like Valley of the Gods, it was taken away, and these places are no longer protected. But I want to step back to the 50,000-foot view because I don't know if everybody in this room knows where Utah is. We're headed to the state of Utah, and specifically to the southern part of the state. This is where two of the nation's largest national monuments used to exist until this happened, reigniting an incredibly heated debate over public lands, especially in the American West. Now, this is a look at the most recent reductions, and the most important parts here, especially the center image where you see the designation of the official Bears Ears National Monument in 2016 at 1.35 million acres, and you see next to it the reductions by the current administration by 85%. Now, the question is, why would anyone want to reduce the boundaries of a national monument? Well, here are a few of the reasons why. This is a map covered with oil, gas, and uranium claims. So if you've been watching the news, that started a hell of a fight. And so I want to dig into this and look a little bit more deeply at exactly what they're fighting for. This is a sacred landscape where tens of thousands of people lived and hunted and prayed and built their homes. It's a place where the incredibly preserved ancestral Pueblo structures cover more than 2 million acres and are desperately in need of protection. They include ceremonial structures with ladders and wooden roofs still perfectly intact, storehouses for food that look almost as well preserved as when they were created 700 to 1,000 years ago. These were the structures that stored much of the corn that was grown up on the mesa tops in those surface sites. These are called granaries. They're often found in incredibly hard-to-reach places because they often held several years' worth of food to get communities through long droughts. But the greatest threat to places like this and this landscape, now it's not just the big oil and uranium that we saw on the map. The threat is us. The sheer number of people like us in this room, outdoors lovers, conservationists that have free time and travel all over to this place to enjoy what used to be quiet backcountry. With the internet and Instagram, a booming population, and a booming economy, the region is getting loved to death. Enter the need for VR work and why we're here today. We want people to know about these places so they know what's worth protecting, but we don't necessarily want them to go to all of these spots. These sites can't handle the numbers. But beyond that potential for damage, there's also incredible opportunity. We can take people to places that they can't physically access, and that means indigenous elders whose bloodline maybe came from this place that can visit their ancestral homeland for the first time, even though their bodies can't make it there. So we traveled to some of these places that very few people know of, that are worth protecting, to reveal a little bit more about them without sharing their actual locations. These videos show the daily commute that my partner Devlin and I made to do our work on these ledges every day. Incredibly hard access. We had to travel these almost every day. And our goal was to photograph by hand every inch of these structures. So thousands and thousands of photographs in stripes up and down these and inside every structure. For the interiors, we used special equipment that was designed in mechanical engineering in the basement. And we then combined anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 individual photographs to create massive digital models. Now, these are really virtual objects, as you'll see, and they're accurate to the millimeter. They can be used by archaeologists to do remote studies. They can be used by visitor centers or museums to teach about conservation without sending people to the actual sites. But they're not just these sterile things that live in a computer environment. These can be wrapped with whole worlds and audio experiences so that the indigenous elders from these places can tell their own stories in their own voices, and we can step back and just be the technicians, really. What you're seeing on the screen is the beginning of a huge collection of these virtual artifacts and objects. You know, some of things like the in situ pots that we photographed, artifacts from museums, the living and ceremonial structures. And as we do this, the indigenous community is choosing which sites can be documented and exactly what wording goes with these. And we're going to be sharing some of that with you at the end of the talk here. And that kind of core involvement from the indigenous community is incredibly important, especially in Bears Ears, because the people who originally came from here, who we called the Anasazi mistakenly for a long time, they didn't disappear in some great mystery. They're not gone. They're still alive. And as we see here in this image, this is a piece of rock art from deep in Grand Gulch. You see the hair buns on the sides of the heads here are the hair buns of the Hopi people. They migrated further south. The people did not disappear. They moved south in migrations to establish what we now know as the communities on the mesas of Arizona, and they became the pueblos of New Mexico. And these descendants, they still return today to visit altars, to make prayers together, to leave offerings. And we're lucky enough that these communities are really leading the storytelling on this. And we're really, like I said, just the technicians on this. So we're going to take you today into one of these spaces that we don't want people to actually physically visit. We're going to take you to Grand Gulch. Grand Gulch is this incredible snake-like cut in the Rocky Mesas. It's a place where hundreds, if not thousands, of communities existed at one point, and we're going to take you there to experience one of our VR prototypes. In this experience, I am not going to be talking to you because it's not my story to tell. You'll be hearing from Marlon Magdalena. He is a musician and educator from Jemez Pueblo. His lineage is from this place. And we're going to take you down deep into the bottom of the gulch and into a Kiva site. This is a special place of prayer and healing, and we're really honored that they allowed us to go and do this and helped us with this project. As you enter this space, at some point you're going to hear a flute. It's a ceremony song that Marlon wrote and performed specifically for this place and for this experience. He is playing a flute that is a reproduction of a 1,300-year-old instrument that was found right by this site. So you can put your headsets on now.
We all came from somewhere. We emerged from the underworld, somewhere in the Four Corners region. Our ancestors were here. Their footprints were left here. They hunted, they planted, they survived in these harsh landscapes. They traveled all these canyons. They moved around in all these canyons. They moved stone to build these houses. After all the generations that have gone on, they're still here, within these overhangs, within these rock shelters. Our ancestors, they never left. And they're still around us, and they're still in these places, like this place, Perfect Kiva, in Grand Gulch. These sacred sites connect us to our past and to our future. Especially certain rooms like Kivas, and we still use Kivas today. We still use them for ceremonies and for gatherings. They connect us to Mother Earth. That's why many of them are subterranean. It connects us to our origins, where we come from. And we say that we emerged from the underworld. And these Kivas connect us to that underworld, to the place where we originated. Especially these old, really old Kivas. People have had ceremonies in them for hundreds and hundreds of years. And when we go inside and enter into a Kiva, we no longer are part of the earth on the outside. We're entering back into our mother. This place you're sitting in, this Kiva, thousands of people have sat here and prayed, sat down on the ground, listened with all their feelings, with all their prayers, with all their minds in one place, in one spot. Those things tend to stay behind. And perhaps you can feel their prayers around you. The people are still here. Their spirits are still around and inside this Kiva. Inside a Kiva, we're being taken back to our origins. Mother Earth, she gives us life, she gave us life, and she still gives us life today. And when a ceremony is complete, we reenact our emergence from Mother Earth that had taken place at the beginnings of the Pueblo people. We climb back up through the ladder to the outside, back to the world we live in.
Thank you, everyone. It looks like there were a few glitches out there. This is a prototype. Nothing like this has ever really been done before. If it didn't work for you, all of this can be found as attached to our November cover story. If you look up this story, you can find ways to look at it on Google Cardboard, on iPads, on cell phones, anything. So I hope you guys will find it if it didn't work out for you. But thank you so much.